Hey everybody, hope this video finds you great, hope it finds you well. So I'm just going to kick off the video here, and what I'm going to do is pull up on my second phone in case anybody has questions. Sorry about that. So I don't really know how many people are going to join. I didn't really schedule a live stream, but here I am. As you can see, live from Turks and Caicos. So currently on vacation. Haven't really taken a vacation. I guess actual time off vacation in. I'm trying to think. I've done some weekend vacations, but that wasn't really time off. But anyway, different story for a different day. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing great. Reason for the vacation is just because I haven't really taken any time off this year, other than when I was moving from Houston to Trinidad. So took some time off and gave myself a little bit of R&R. So hung out on the beach a little bit today. Luckily, I did not get sunburned. But yeah, here I am, just trying to check in with you guys. I haven't posted any videos, obviously, because I've been out of the country. Went home to the U.S. for a little bit for a wedding, and then I went to Canada. I actually met up with passive income investor, so that was a good time. Had a good conversation over some cigars. So hoping to meet up with him a little bit later in the coming week or so, and actually have a real conversation with him. So anyway, I know there is one person in here. I am the other person. So hope you're doing well. Don't know who is actually in here or not, but really what I guess I want to talk about is future goals, potentially, and then get into any questions that people end up showing up on the stream. I know a lot of people, generally speaking, are getting around to their normal time to be able to watch videos before they head to sleep. So I'm sure they're finishing up a current video, and then when they're scrolling, they'll be able to see. So we'll probably have some people trickle in over time. But really also wanted to thank JMac and Jose, Rico Suave, as some may know him, for inviting me on the live chat last week. I thought that was a great time. I think what ends up happening is you guys get to see more of the conversational aspect of things when I get to do those sort of conversations that I don't necessarily get to do when I'm doing a video one-on-one with you guys like I am now. And so you're able to see a little bit more of like the personality that I have. I'm still not 100% comfortable talking in front of the camera, and I think you guys can probably tell that right now. But yeah, working on it. Hopefully, be able to do some future collaborations so that I can actually do that a little bit. But hey, good evening. But yeah, some really good earnings reports came out. I also want to talk about a little bit about Johnson & Johnson. I thought that was pretty crazy. So for those of you guys that don't know, at about 3:45 p.m. Eastern time today, they halted trading on Johnson & Johnson on the New York Stock Exchange for pending news. And then immediately after the stock market ended, or trading ended at 4 p.m., they released the fact that Johnson & Johnson had taken the baby powder that the SEC and the stock market had used for asbestos analysis, and I think they did like 20 separate runs at multiple different corporations, multiple different labs, and all of them came back with no asbestos. So curious how that's going to end up with respect to everything. I think they tested multiple different batches, as well as the same batch that the other company had tested. So real interesting to see what happens with that. Obviously, I have a couple shares of Johnson & Johnson at around the 128, 129 mark. So so in that respect, anticipate that the stock will definitely rise up from that. But another good investment that I made recently is 3M. I think my cost base, or no, sorry, not 3M, Caterpillar. I think I got in at a cost basis of around $119. I think the lowest it had been in the last 52 weeks is $110, but I think earlier in October, it got down to 119-ish or so. And I put a little bit of money in there. And luckily I'm up. Last time I checked, it was like the 130, 135 range. So up a pretty good margin on that. But of course, I'm holding it for the dividend. I think it's a great long-term dividend hold. So I don't have any reluctance to sell that just for capital gains. I'd like to hold on that for the long term. It's crazy to see when you travel around just how many people are using Caterpillar. I remember back in the early 2000s, I think Kubota was starting to become a really big thing with respect to trying to challenge Caterpillar. But I think what ended up happening is Kubota was taking more of the smaller term, or not smaller term, but smaller machinery market, like things along lines of like backyard machinery, whereas Caterpillar was obviously focusing on the very large equipment, like and it ended up being a very strict race between John Deere and Kubota. But generally speaking, Caterpillar did not end up having any issues because they have such large equipment across the world. But yeah. Anyway, we got about 5 of us in here now, 6 including the phone that I have, just so I can read the chat. But thank you all for showing up. I'm sure we'll have more people trickle in. But if you guys have any questions, let me know. For those of you guys who don't necessarily know who I am, because I've seen some people that I've never necessarily seen before, although I might have seen Thomas before in the comment section. I'm Matt. I generally have about a 350, actually it's over $360,000 now, portfolio that I manage, mostly 240 of which is like a dividend portfolio that I discuss a lot on the channel. And from that, I make about $11,000 a year in dividend income, and hoping to grow that to about $14,000 next year. And then in the coming 5 or 6 years, hoping to get that to about $100,000 in dividend income. So really anticipating great things from the portfolio. That's going to be pretty difficult in the coming years, trying to increase income by about 50% over the next 2 years and end up being about 30% every year thereafter. So hoping that I can maintain progress. For those of you who haven't seen some of my other videos, I talk a lot about the ability that I've been able to do of growing my dividend income year over year. And a lot of that is through additional capital being allocated to the portfolio. So it's not a lot of growth, although there is growth in there. I've calculated it several times. Sometimes it's 8%, sometimes a little bit more. But a lot of times what it ends up being, and I think a lot of people don't think about this, is it's additional capital contributions to the portfolio. And I think what ends up happening is a lot of times people will add, say, $5,000, $10,000, and they'll do that initial investment. And that's great. Getting started, and there's a couple articles that I want to write in the future. So hopefully you guys are able to read those. But one of the big things that people end up doing is they invest $5,000, $10,000, which is a phenomenal start. And that really gets your foot in the door, and you're able to really start to understand and play with real money and determine how you want to shape your portfolio and shape your strategy in the long run. But I think what people fail to do is they fail to add and continually add contributions to the portfolio. If you think about any true investor, even people like Warren Buffett or anything like that, they continue to go out to the capital markets to be able to grow. Just like normal companies, they continue to add capital in, whether that's their own capital through capital reinvestment, or whether that's through going out to get debt to add back into the company so they can increase their leverage and increase their rate of return. And I'm not saying you as a personal investor should do that, but I think what people fail to do is they fail to almost recognize themselves as a company when their household really is run like a company. And I forget who said this that I'm kind of channeling off of more recently, and I think it might have been Jeremy from Financial Education, but he's 100% right. I mean, people always fail to take the money that they've earned and reinvest it, and what they'll end up doing is basically just sitting on the initial $5,000-$10,000 that they invest, and then they get frustrated with the portfolio. They don't have a long-term plan, and so they're kind of just uncertain about it. And then anything can happen with that, whether they're investing in extremely risky dividend stocks or they're investing in capital gains stocks, like value growth stocks rather, that get very volatile and they'll lose 10-15% in a day. They begin to panic because they don't have a solid foundation. So that's basically that all I really want to talk about with respect to that. And with Ryan, I'll just answer this question really quick. I don't necessarily, to be 100% honest, I'm pretty jealous of Ryan. Ryan's got a lot of hustle, and so I think what ended up happening, he responded with complete politeness, but what I ended up doing is I personally was at fault. I was trying to basically poke at him, saying that he's a long-term dividend investor, but he does a little bit of swing trading, which I can understand. If you got profit, there's no harm in taking a profit. And so I kind of took a jab at him in his comment section, and he was 100% right. He was just like, he's been working at it for a long time, and he's 100% right. I think where I was coming from is someone that's jealous, someone that's been really trying to hustle just like he has been, and he works full-time as well, just like I do. And so what ended up happening is I think I lost a moment of consciousness and really kind of let a bit of note out. And I think what I did is I realized I made a mistake. And so, I immediately tried to fix it up with him. So hopefully he sees that. But anyway, I think what he agreed with me in the comment that I did in return, which was, really enjoy what he's saying. And so I think I also touched on it when I was talking with J-Mac and Jose. So yeah, no, I don't really have any beef with him or anything like that by any means. I think it was just a lapse in judgment on my part. So we'll fully admit that, and it was all due to the fact that he's doing really, really well, and he's got a great subscriber base. So there's that. So hey everybody, had a couple people join in. We had Hidden Freedom Investing and All Good join in. So they're always generally speaking on the live stream. So I appreciate those guys coming in. So we're up to about 9 people, 10 if you include the me looking at the chat window here when people show up. But really just talking about future goals and stuff like that. So if you guys have any questions with respect to anything, let me know. But really just wanted to touch base with you guys because I haven't been able to make a video. I didn't bring any laptops or with me or anything like that. I really just wanted to take a little bit of a break, and if I did want to write anything down or do any work, I was going to do it on a notepad and some paper, which I did a little bit of last night, 2 nights ago, when I was still in Toronto. But had a really good meetup with Passive Income Investor when I was up in Toronto. He's a cool dude, so really looking forward to happening with that. With respect to real estate, I don't directly invest in real estate, meaning I don't hold property on my own. What I'll do is I'll invest through Fundrise, and I'll invest through real estate investment trusts, obviously. And then I also have an investment, about $15,000 in Cardone Capital. So I'll invest in private real estate that way. And so there's that aspect of things. It's really a small portion of the portfolio. I think I did a calculation. So right now, the income from the portfolio generates around $11,100. And of that, it was about $735 that comes from Fundrise and the Cardone Capital aspect of things. And what I was thinking about is I kind of have this vision, and I won't get too much into it, but of having a stock portion of the portfolio and then a real estate portion of the portfolio. And with that, I was thinking that if I were to maybe not invest in REITs anymore, and actually utilize that to do, say, private real estate or Fundrise or what have you, I could kind of get those two pillars going. And there's some other plans in the future, and I also am working on getting some other kind of main streams, whether that's like independent businesses. And so I have my Shopify now, which is really the only real thing. And I guess YouTube you can consider as my own separate businesses. So I don't really count that money now in terms of that passive income that I'm making, because at the moment, the Shopify and the YouTube is kind of active. I mean, I'm still having to work for it every once in a while. So there's the aspect of things. Jose, how you doing, brother? But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question about real estate. I do want to venture into it. I do like the tax advantages of it, because at the moment, I do have a pretty high tax bracket just based off my W-2 income. And so, yeah. Also, I was talking to passive income investor on Sunday when I was up in Toronto, and he told me that I should probably tell you guys what I do for a living. I'm still hesitant somewhat on it, but I think if we get enough people in here, maybe like 20, 25 people, I might do it. So tell everybody, tell your friends, yeah, everyone always wonders what I do. Tell your friends, tell your wife, make multiple YouTube accounts, and just join from random YouTube accounts, and maybe I'll tell you guys tonight what I do for a living. But I believe somebody, Jose remembers. I had when I was on the conversation with him last week, with him and Jason. There was the whole. I wasn't really paying attention to the live chat during the conversation. I was just focusing on having a great conversation with those two guys, and apparently people were blowing up. And I remember another live stream that I did. I think the second to last live stream I did, people were saying I was in the FBI and secret agent and stuff like that. So, but you know, if we get enough people in here, we're getting close. 14 people at this point. So I'm a gigolo. I wish, man. I'm not nearly good looking enough for that. So I answered, do you invest in real estate? So we got a new guy, Danzer. Yeah, Danzer. Welcome. For being a first timer. Really appreciate you stopping by. You're right, I haven't seen you before in the comment section, so welcome. I don't work remotely. I wish I did. I'm almost making enough now where I talked to myself when I first started doing dividend investing, and I think what I said is, like, if I can make $1,500 a month, this was like 4 years ago, if I can make $1,500 a month in dividend income, I might move to Southeast Asia for a year. So it's not out of the realm. I've thought about it, but I think at this point in my career, with respect to my W-2 income, I don't want to put that on hold for that, because it is a pretty large steep of income. So unless things change pretty drastically in terms of income coming in, besides W-2 and stuff like that, then I'm probably going to continue to work for at least the foreseeable future. I think what I'm at the moment, and this can change, month to month, depending on how income comes in, but I'm thinking in like 5 to 6 years, I'll have to make a pivot point, whether or not I want to stay working at a W-2 job or not. And that's not because I don't like what I do. I love what I do. I think what it is more along the lines of, am I getting more enjoyment out of, say, doing YouTube or my other side businesses, or do I like to do what I'm doing and help people like I do with my current job? So that's all the things kind of taken into account for that. So long answer, but I don't work remotely. I currently just work in Trinidad based off the fact that the company wanted me to go there for a little bit. So yeah, that's that. That answers that question. But I think at the moment the goal, or the last time I chatted, and so I still need to have a conversation the next couple months. But last time I chatted with the people that sponsor me, which is Texas. Texas sponsors me currently here in Trinidad. They're currently paying for a lot of the expenses for me to be down here. And Trinidad's paying for somebody to go up there and what have you. But what was I going to say with that? At the moment, I think it's looking like me going back to Texas, but we'll see. So, did I do a collab video together? No, I wish that me and Passive Income Investor did do a collab video together. We're obviously going to do a video. We met up, we smoked a cigar, we talked for a good 3 hours, and it was getting real late, and he had a job to do on Monday, which was yesterday. So we didn't do a video, but that dude has a lot of energy. He's smart as shit. Excuse me, I'm cursing, and he's smart. I want to talk to him a lot more often. He really motivates me. He really makes me think, and I need more people like him in my circle. So that guy has a lot of knowledge about stuff that I don't have. So he has a lot of internet knowledge. He's done a lot of, he's an entrepreneur. So, he's making his money on his own. So if any of you guys watch his channel, this is Passive Income Investor, then you might know that, he lives in Toronto, and he does magic as his primary job. But he set up all these businesses and ways to get money from his clients just based off of the fact that he's a magician. So, he's been able to utilize these, and the way that he set those businesses up, he can apply to a lot different other things. So he's a really smart guy. So I hope to work with him in the future. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, everyone wants to know what I do. That's funny. Not a judo. Yeah, we talked about that. Tony Danzer. Yeah, man. My petroleum engineer. We'll see. You guys get enough people in here, maybe I'll talk about what I do. Switch to W-2 job allows you to take advantage of the $100K tax free. Yeah, man. If you could explain that, I don't really know what you mean by that. But one of the things I have thought about is I've been doing a lot of research about creating LLCs and S corps, and I keep getting stuck on something over here. I don't know what's going on. W-2, sorry, not W-2, but LLCs and S corps and that sort of stuff. So, oh yeah, you're right. So yeah, unfortunately, I'll be in country within 365 days. So I end up having to, which is fine. I still get a little bit of a pay bump, and still curious how all that stuff kind of works. So it'll be interesting for me. But the cool thing about this experience is I've learned a lot about visas and all that stuff, which I never really knew before, and how, I don't want to say archaic governments and stuff are, but it almost seems like it's almost like sometimes governments just don't want people to work together. It's real interesting. It's just like, I can understand the immigration aspect of things, not wanting people to just show up, and but at the end of the day, I think we need to find a better way to do business with each other. For instance, it just took, I don't know if it's just like being more forthright about why you're coming and why you need the work visa or anything like that. But yeah, it's just real interesting. Like, I relatively had easy coming. I think it took me like 2 or 3 months to get my visas to come to Trinidad. But I know some people that, have issues going to the US, they have issues going to Canada, and it's just real interesting, and it's a new experience for me, because obviously living in the US, you have one of the more superior passports with respect to relationships and not having to get visas and apply to places when you go, and I was relatively untraveled rather before I moved to Trinidad. So I guess I didn't necessarily, it was naive of me because ignorance is bliss, I guess, in that respect, where I never had to interact with it. So I didn't really ever think about it. And so now that I work with some folks that have to do that, and myself included, it starts to make a little bit more sense. That and foreign exchange. Learned a lot more about that. I mean, I had a decent idea and I knew what it was, right? I mean, it's exchange of different currencies to try to create more money or to do business in other countries. But just even understanding how it works in even say a country like Turks and Caicos or Trinidad or any other country, it starts to make a lot of sense once you're starting to try to do business between different countries. So, wow, is it really? Sorry, I was just looking at Green Ghost's comment. If it's really over $80, that's crazy. And to think I used to have over like 200 or so shares, and I sold them using a covered call. And I think I sold the covered call at about 65, and I lost like $2 or $3 per share. So I was pretty upset about that because I lost like 500, $600. And I thought it was overvalued then. I feel like it's way overvalued now, but it's a different story for a different day. So I don't. So to answer, that's a really good question. I don't max my 401k, and reason being is I'm not missing any questions, am I? Okay, so I don't max my 401k. A lot of my friends think I'm crazy, and the reason being is because I don't necessarily anticipate retiring beyond 59 and a half, and so I believe I'm going to be able to retire a lot sooner than that. And that being said, I want to have access to my money before then. So I think at the moment, everyone, if you've been following the channel, knows that in 5, 6, 7 years, I'm hoping to be able to retire. In the next 2 to 3 years, I hope to be able to cover my expenses. And so if I'm putting all my money in a 401k, while yes, that might be tax advantageous, and I respect that, and it might grow tax free, I'll have to pay a penalty. And so I definitely max out my Roth IRA because that still allows me to pull out the $6,000 that I contribute on a yearly basis. And I do the company match minimum. So my company is nice enough to match between 5 and 10%. And so I match that 5 and 10%. So you think about it, if I match that 5 to 10%, the company matches 5 to 10%. I'm getting anywhere between 10 to 20% of my salary away into my 401k. And if you view it that way, financial advisors and stuff like that, while I don't agree with this, and please let me finish, they say that if you're able to get away 10 to 15%, you'll be able to retire at a reasonable age. I think that while that is true, it allows you to retire, I guess you could say, at a reasonable age. It'll take forever. But the way I view it as, it's a backup, in my opinion. So I'll do the match, and then luckily the company matches me. And so that gets me my 10 to 20% that if I were to live and do a normal investing career, that I could retire on. Then I obviously contribute to the Roth $6,000 a year. And so that gets me another, 4 or 5% a year. And then I, generally speaking, max the rest of my money. Previously used to be 35 to 40% of my money. The remainder of that 35 to 40%. So obviously taking out the 10 to 20% or the 10% from my 401k and the 5 or so percent from my Roth. And I would take the additional, what is that? I'm not good at math. 20 to 25% and putting into my individual brokerage account. Probably a lot more than that, actually. But what I would try to do is try to get to that point. And so that being said, that gets me to the 35 to 40%, which would put me on track to retire before 59 if things go as expected. And so if I put everything in my 401k and I max that out, 18,000 a year, and the company matches me my 5 to 10%, then that means I'm going to be sitting somewhere in my 40s wanting to retire early because I have a net worth that's pretty extravagant, but I can't touch it. And so it also allows me the flexibility to put things into real estate, gold, if I wanted to. I'm not a big fan of physical commodities, but real estate, other businesses if I wanted to. So hopefully that answers your question there. And I saw that JMac entered. How you doing, brother? But I was just joking around that if we are able to... Oh, damn, you're playing Modern Warfare? I wish I still played, man. Great days. I wish I still played. Only person that's not letting me play is myself, but I'm so out of it now. I don't know if I can get back in it. But I was just joking with him, Jason, saying that if we get 15 to 25, or 25 to 20 to 25 people, Jesus. If we get 20 to 25 people in here, I might tell them what I do. And people got real excited, but they're not telling their friends, obviously, because we went from like 12 or 13 to 15. So maybe a couple of y'all told your friends, but it is what it is. But if it makes you guys happy, I told Passive Income Investor what I do, so maybe y'all can get jealous. Yeah, I could have bought them. I could have bought my shares of Realty Income Corp when they got called away, but I did not because I thought they were overvalued. But let's see. So yeah, so if the company matches me, get 100% gain. The tax penalty is only 10% for a withdrawal. Am I making a mistake in my thinking? So yeah, I do. What your thinking's not wrong. I do get an automatic 100% return, but in that respect. But for me, I'd rather have the flexibility of being able to invest in what I want. I do like the 401k options I have target date funds. I can invest in like a retirement fund if I want right now, which is really conservative, invest heavily into bonds, all the way to like I think they just released the 2055 or 2060 retirement fund, which I obviously would not use. But they also do income funds, whether it's just like short-term cash, so like CDs and stuff like that. So you don't ever lose money if the market goes down, but you're also getting, a slight boost in interest. S&P 500, the company stock, and there's a bunch of other stuff, but I generally just keep it in the S&P 500. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, I could convert it to a Roth if I wanted to. You're not wrong. And there's no penalty for me to convert from a Roth 401k to a Roth IRA. And I could technically, so the problem is I'm not educated enough to know if I'd be able to take out my contributions from that or not. If when I contributed it or when I rolled it over from a Roth 401k to a Roth IRA, if they would know what exactly is contributions and what are not. So I don't know that part. So if it is, then it gives me a little bit more flexibility and we might be able to see if we can work something out. But thank you, Dave. Yes, if you want to retire early, you need non-tax deferred accounts. I agree. And I want to talk about this. So I think I've even heard of people being like, oh, well, I'm not going to invest any more than a Roth IRA, which is $6,000 a year, and I'm going to max out my 401k, and I'm not going to invest any more. And it's like, at that point, you're just hurting yourself. It's like, I understand, yes, you'll end up having to pay taxes, but it's like, if you do end up having to pay capital gains taxes, you're still getting, say, the other 85% that isn't taxed. So it's like if you end up investing and say getting like a 15% capital gains or 15% dividend tax, it's like you're still getting the other 85%. So it's the only person you're hurting yourself is you, just because you're afraid of paying taxes. And if you ever want to make money in this world, you can't be afraid to make taxes. I mean, if you ever want to be self-employed, you ever want to be, really do anything, you would continue to grow businesses and stuff like that, you're going to end up having to pay taxes. Now you can invest in things and you can help depreciate those things and try to maneuver money around to avoid a larger tax bill and try to mitigate that tax bill. But at the end of the day, if you're afraid of making money or if you're afraid of paying taxes, then you're in a wrong mindset. Excuse me. You're in the wrong mindset and you need to rethink, because at that point you're only hurting yourself. 5 likes and he tells us. I should just hire you to be like my hype man or something. I already told you, 20 to 25 people in here at once, and it'll happen. But call your moms, call your dads. I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting real close. So I think earlier, was it an engineer? Yes, I am an engineer. Rate cut tomorrow, we'll see. Okay, word. Sorry, I misread that. Cook for 5 years. Okay, smart man. Use your tax for 401k for match. Let's understand. 19k tax deferred, but you have enough in available tax accounts, so you don't need to touch the deferred accounts. Yeah, I agree. I think my biggest part is really trying to lower the tax bracket. And especially for me, I invest a lot in real estates and I was reading Jason's comment. I invest a lot in real estate investment trusts, and while some of them are in my Roth IRA, meaning that I don't ever have to pay taxes on that, some of them are in my individual brokerage account, like my Realty Income Corp, my Stag Industrial, I think Main Street Capital is non-qualified dividend as well. And so I pay increased taxes on those just because they're not in a tax deferred account. And so people are like, well, why don't you move in a Roth IRA? Well, unfortunately, I'm only able to contribute the $6,000 a year. And so that really puts a limit on how much I invest. And people are like, well, why would you invest in an individual brokerage account? And then it gets back into that circle. It's like, well, yeah, I understand that I'm still having to pay a higher tax, but it's like I also have shares of Main Street Capital in my Roth IRA. I also have WP Carey, which is a real estate investment trust, in my Roth IRA. I also hold Cyrus One, which I was hoping the dividend would grow a lot faster, but capital gains on it are really well, but I wish the dividend would grow faster. I also have that in my Roth IRA as well. And so I am trying to put less tax advantage investments in my Roth IRA, but I don't really qualify for a Roth, but that's a different story for a different day. Maybe I could talk about that. So I don't qualify for a Roth anymore, but and I think I touched on this in a previous video, but you can do a Roth backdoor conversion, or what they call it as, did we talk about this last time? I think I talked about this with Jason and Jose, but you can almost do like a reclassification of what your contributions are. So what you do is you basically just put your money into the taxable traditional IRA account, which then you can use to lower your tax bracket at the end of the year, or not lower your tax bracket, but lower your tax bill. So for instance, if you're making $100,000 a year and you put in the $6,000 into your traditional IRA, you could then only claim that you made $94,000 for the year. And so thus you'll end up saving, let's say, 20% off that $6,000. So you end up only having to pay, it's like you're basically investing $6,000, but because you're getting $1,200 in tax breaks, you're really only investing $4,800 to get 6,000, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I think I might have did my math wrong there, but whereas if you do your Roth IRA, your taxable income still stays at that original $100,000. And so once you get to that 121, maybe it's $122,000 range now, they really start to limit how much you can put in a Roth IRA. But what they don't give you problems with is if you initially put it in a traditional IRA and you can invest it in the traditional IRA and then reclassify it. You'll have to pay taxes on that initial gain, so it's like $100 gain or what have you. But if you move it over into your Roth or reclassify it before you have any capital gains, you don't have to pay any taxes on that or penalties or anything like that. You can just move, say, the $5,000-$6,000 from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. And in the case where you actually already have a Roth IRA, you can move it to the same Roth IRA with no problems. And so I ran into a problem a couple years ago where I started to get into that band where you have to start choking back on how much you put directly into a Roth IRA. And it was a huge pain in the butt to have to remove stuff from my Roth IRA, and I ended up having to sell a really good investment, which was Visa, and I had a decent amount of shares. And then by the time I was able to classify everything back as a Roth again, going through a traditional IRA, Visa had already jumped up in price, and I had Visa at a really good cost basis. It was at like $72, I remember. So I want to say it was 3 years ago. And by the time I wanted to get back into it, it was like high 80s or 90s or something. And so I was just like, I'll wait till it comes back down. And then obviously, it never comes back down because it's Visa and it's a really great company. So let's check up if anybody asked any questions. So Jason asked how the vacation's going. Man, I love this place. I was kind of joking around with some of my coworkers. So I was talking a little bit about visas earlier. And there was another guy on YouTube who talks about visa by investment programs, and Turks and Caicos is one of them, and there's a couple other ones that have citizen by investment programs. And so if you invest enough money, depending on what island you're investing in, it's $300,000 or $1 million, depending on what island you want to invest on, you could become a citizen, and then that gives you ability to go to Europe and stuff like that without having visas, and also allows you to move here, and then that might be able to limit your tax bill if you're trying to get out of a country where you pay obscene taxes like the UK, maybe the US. And so there's no capital gains tax, stuff like that. No property taxes here, I think, as well. So there's just a decent benefit of potentially moving here, especially if you're retired, so that way you don't have to pay as much in taxes. So I was thinking about that. But anyway, long story short, I do really like it here. I was actually thinking about if I could ever come back, because I leave here on Thursday, and then I go to Antigua for a couple days, and then I go from Antigua back to Trinidad. So that's the plan. But I really do like it here. People are great. The service is phenomenal. The rooms are really nice and spacious. It's an all-inclusive, so I get all the beer I could want. I ran out of beer in my fridge. I went to the front desk. I said, give me more beer. They gave me more beer. So no complaints. And I was expecting the beer not to be good, but it's local. Turks and Caicos made beer, and it's real good. So can't complain. It tastes better when it's cold, and they just got me some new stuff, so it's not as cold as I want it to be. But let's see. Just can't get yourself to leave your money in. I can understand that. Yeah, I mean, there was a hard component for me when I first started investing to really get over the emotional aspect that stocks go up, stocks go down. And for me, what I recognized, doing a little bit of research, doing a little bit of studying, is the actual value of the position might go down. The ability for the company to generate cash might also potentially go down, but the majority of those companies are still in a financial position that it's just a financial hiccup. So they might go down, say 5-10% in terms of earnings for a quarter or maybe two, just based on the fact that people are spending less. But at the end of the day, I generally believe that the value of the positions is drastically panicked. And so what ends up happening is, while the company's earnings might go down 10, maybe 15%, like they did in the Great Recession, the stock price went down by 50, 60%. And I think part of that wasn't necessarily all these companies going bankrupt and stuff like that. Yeah, there are some bankruptcies and stuff like that. But I think a part of it is because there's a recession, there's multiple shrinking. So it's not only earnings values are shrinking, say from $1 trillion a year to $800 billion a year, which would end up in a 20% result, or 20% decline if people were trading on a like-for-like basis. But then I believe there's also multiple shrinking. And so, for instance, stocks at the moment are trading about 20, 21 times earnings. And so if you make about $1 trillion in terms of earnings, the whole stock market will be worth around 20 to 21 trillion dollars in that respect. If then earnings shrink or then stay the same, let's just say they stay the same, still making the same $1 trillion in earnings, but the earnings multiple shrinks by, say, from 20% to 15%, you've then lost 25% of the value. And so what I think ended up happening was there was a drastic change in earnings multiple, then willingness of people to pay, let's say, 15 to 20 times earnings for stocks back in 2008, 2009. And yet there was also the decrease in earnings in total. And so I think it was a double whammy there. But within a year and a half, if you remember, earnings were pretty close back to where they were. And now, if you think about it from 2008, 2009 timeframe, I think the stock market was at like 1800 back then, and it's almost double that right now. So if you keep that aspect in mind, and the fact that I think the payout and dividends went down by, I think, 20% from 2008 to 2009. And then by the time it hit 2010 timeframe, earnings were back up in SPY back to $1 again. So in that respect, you only lost your income. You lost 20% of your income, which I can understand is stressful to those that are potentially retirees and need cash flow on a month-to-month basis, but it only disappeared for a year. And now I can't even imagine what SPY is paying as a dividend. It's probably, I don't even know. I mean, it probably 3 times as much as it was back then. I'm not exactly too sure, but it's, I think people, depending on what your time horizon is, that's very important. If you're going to retire next year, I can completely understand why you'd want to stay out of the market. But for someone like myself, it's very hard for me to understand that, yes, or it's very easy for me to understand is, yes, markets go up, markets go down, but my time horizon is 20, 30 years from now, maybe 5, 6 years from now. But even still, it depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at a total value of the portfolio, you're going to make different decisions. I'm looking at dividend income. And so if I lose 20% next year, I'm okay with that. I just have to readjust my targets or invest more money or what have you. But I know within a year, maybe 2, it's going to be back to where it was, unless something drastic happens, like the U.S. just completely gets annihilated off the face of the earth and Armageddon happens, which is possible. But if you believe that the U.S. as a country will stay intact, then like Warren Buffett does and a lot of others do, then I believe that it's probably one of the best places to put your money. And so while there might be another recession, you might lose money for a year, but it'll come back. And so I don't necessarily care, and I'll continue to invest month after month after month, and grow my decrease my cost basis with that, and end up getting an increase in total returns over time. So hopefully that made a lot of sense. It was a real big ramble, but backdoor is tough in a high bracket. I haven't had any problems yet, but we'll see. There's another caveat if you have an existing IRA with gains and such. Yeah, it's a real big pain if you have an IRA, a traditional IRA with gains, and you got to pay taxes on the gains and what have you. Um, so yes, food is real well, and Turks and Caicos food is real good, and in Trinidad the food is real good as well. So is $1.84 what SPY currently pays? Because it was $1. I'm just trying to figure out if that's what Hidden Freedom Investing is trying to say. But with respect to, is it risky to invest in Cardone Capital? I personally don't know. So I've gotten my third payment, or was it my fourth? I got third or fourth payment. So holy Jesus, $555 a year, 556, whatever it is. I can't read that far. 558 a year. So you think about it, it went from $1. The SPY was paying $1 in 2008, and now it's paying $558 per year. So yes, it might have dipped 20% from 2008 to 2009. And maybe by $1, I might be thinking back all the way to 2000, year 2000. But I want to say in 2008, it was yielding $1 and it went down. And by the time 2010 came around, it was back up to $1. That's crazy if it's 558 because, I mean, oof. But anyway, so I don't necessarily know how risky it is. I'm getting a payment every month. The problem that I have at the moment is, which if I'm directly investing into real estate, I could understand if the income that I get on a monthly basis comes up, comes down. But the payment that I'm getting for the past 3-4 months, I don't remember what it is now, has been flat. It's been $56 off a $15,000 investment, which is around 4.5% a year, which I'll get back to in a second. But I can understand if I was getting 4.5% a year, if it dipped down to $50 one month because they had to change a bathroom out or something like that. They had an insurance payment or something. And then the next month it's $70. And so I can understand if it fluctuated and I got at the end of the year 4.5%. But the fact that it's flat and it's real estate and I'm potentially the owner of, say, 3 or 4 properties is interesting. So I don't necessarily know if what ends up happening is, so I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but that respect, it's upsetting to me. In the respect that I've still gotten my payments, that is positive. And so I've gotten over a 1% back of my initial investment just on that. So it's not, lubing the deals or anything like that. But I'll continue to keep people posted as years go on and stuff like that. But it also depends on what you're investing in. So this latest fund that's opening to non-accredited investors, and now I don't necessarily know your case. You could be an accredited investor, and so therefore you might be able to invest in other things. There was a property they just invested in Austin, Texas, that looked phenomenal, and I wish that I was able to invest in that, and I wasn't because it was only available for accredited investors. And so if I had the opportunity, I would have loved to invest in that. But there's this new one that they're trying to invest people in, which is in Panama Beach, Florida, or Panama City, Florida. I don't necessarily remember. When I first came out, I was just like, is he talking about Panama? But he's not. So regardless, I looked at it and it looks okay, but it doesn't look as quality of an investment as, say, what I thought Cardone Equity 4 and 5 were investing in. And so in that respect, when I realized he was opening up an additional fund, I thought about investing in it, but then I looked at the property and I wasn't about it. And so If another property comes out and it looks favorable, maybe I'll invest in it. But I don't think I'll invest in this one per se. But anyway, hopefully that answers that question. So, had your Roth IRA for a year now. If all I knew about investing W0, meaning 20 years ago, I guess. I feel like someone failed me, but you can't really effectively share knowledge you don't know about or understand. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I agree. Fundrise does some dumb stuff too. Ramping up projects and stuff doesn't tell you it's going to invest you in them, and it does. And then you don't get a quarterly dividend and stuff like that. And you're wondering why. And I initially was a hater against Fundrise because I saw that they were promising me or promising people 8 to 10%, generally speaking, on average returns, but I was seeing 6 to 7%. And then I started recognizing the fact that they were putting me, or the dividends I was reinvesting into ramping up funds. But then people might be like, oh, well, then that's probably the reason why you're down by 1 or 2%. But it doesn't make sense for an entire portfolio to then be down, say 1 to 2%, if it's only investing in the reinvested dividends into the ramping up portion of the portfolio. And so I think that Fundrise was still not necessarily being 100% transparent about what's going on there. But so let's see. Gen X, welcome, brother. I can move this closer. I don't know why I have it so far away. Yeah, I think that's one of the big problems is that I have, which Maria and Hidden Freedom Investor are talking about right now, is I think that the U.S. education system and probably other education systems in the world are now trying to get each other to be best at like mathematics and physics. And so they're training a lot of these people to be employees, which is well and good. Everyone needs to have the foundational mathematics and the foundational science skills to be able to excel in the world. But you only need to know potentially so much mathematics. You only need to know potentially so much physics, calculus, chemistry. And in actuality, it's like all 100%, in my opinion, employee-based education. Sort of, kind of even. I mean, it doesn't even really teach you how to be an employee. In my opinion, you still have to learn a lot of things on the job from when you first start, and a lot of you probably can relate to that. And so I think because of that, the U.S. has lost a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. And so you might have some folks that have that entrepreneurial spirit, but it's not taught in class, and it's not taught about how to maintain businesses and small businesses and stuff like that. So that's why you're seeing small businesses decline, and you're seeing big business as a portion of the total GDP of the country continue to expand. Yeah, it's because obviously big companies have the ability to grow, and 1% from a big company versus 1% from a small company is a lot larger in terms of GDP. But I feel like you just don't have as many mom and pop stores anymore because you don't have these people that are able to replace the baby boomers and stuff like that when it comes to having something as simple as like a deli shop. And so nowadays it's like kind of interesting. You'll see, and with respect to Houston is a really good topic, is like we had like a butcher restaurant open up in a decent part of town in Houston, and people lost their minds. They thought it was like the greatest thing of all time. And I'm like, there's butchers in every grocery shop across America. But you think about it, a specialized grocer that has high quality dry aged meats and stuff like that. It's like almost formed like these niches, but it's like literally 80 years ago, 90 years ago, it's like a butcher would have been like a classic job for somebody to come out and do late in life, but as a full-time job. But nowadays it's interesting. So anyway, it's like we're almost trading people to be professionals, and like we look down upon people that are tradesmen, but tradesmen are what keep the world going. Anyway, different story for a different day. Um, so Maria, I also said that um, that I would not invest in Fundrise again either. And I got like 15,000 views on the video. And I think to date, it's still my most disliked video. I think I have over 50% dislikes on that video. I'm okay with it because I wasn't necessarily saying that Fundrise is a poor platform. I still think it's a good platform. I just think that if you're going to tell people that they're going to get, I think at the time they were saying 10 to 12% returns, and you don't get it, then I still don't understand why people were badgering me saying like you're only getting $67, 6 to 7,000 or 6 to 7%. Like, why are you upset? That's good compared to most people or most investments. Like, I would kill for 6 to 7%, and I'm like, but that year the stock market did X, and that year they were promising me 10 to 12%. So in that respect, I was somewhat upset about it, and they were also like making fun of the fact that I only had $1,000 in it, not knowing that at that time I had over $200,000 in other things. And so they're like, you only had $1,000, of course. And I'm like, but that doesn't change the percentage return. It's like, yes, I've only made $70 or whatever it was, but it's like, even if I had $10,000 in here, it's still gonna only make $700, and I could have made that money elsewhere. So, anyway, Blood Phantom 82. Oh God, I'm just catching up. Sorry if I'm far behind. So Blood Phantom 81. I did go to college. I went to somewhere in Pennsylvania, and I studied engineering. I'm still waiting for 8 to 13 more people to join before I tell you what type of engineering. I don't own SPHD, and I've done some previous portfolio reviews where I talk about every stock that's in the portfolio, but I made a couple of videos in the past, and some of them are real close. Some of them have like 140 some likes, but I said if we got 250 likes on 2 of the videos, one was talking about the $350,000 portfolio and the yield and dividends coming from each of them. If that one got 250 likes, then I would do a reveal of every stock and every single account that I had, and albeit maybe not what company I work for, because I have some shares in that. And the second video is I have a YouTube Moolah account that has about $2,400 in it now, just based off the money that I made from YouTube. And what I was planning on doing was, with that $2,400, I normally just invest it in ETFs like IVV, IJR, ITOT, which ITOT, just based on that account, was up 20%, which I'm pretty excited about. But it doesn't really give me, doesn't really give me and you guys interaction. So what I was hoping is, every time we get a video up to 250 likes, starting with that video and every video thereafter, I would invest $250 tranches. And so with whatever people put in the first ticker symbol. So the first 10 ticker symbols or whatever, I'd set up a poll and people would vote. But that video is far from 250 likes. So I don't think it even broke like 500 views or something like that. But if you guys go back and want to watch those videos, I'll still be probably live streaming by the time you're done. But make sure you go back and like those videos so that way we can get a little bit more fun of the portfolio. And that would give me a little bit more interaction. And it'll all be based off of what you guys do. So you might not necessarily get the direct thing because it's going to be the first 10. And then out of the first 10, we're going to all vote on that. So if you vote, say, 11 or something like that, you'll at least try to get your stock heard. So if you put like Tesla, GE, 3M, Johnson & Johnson, and everyone votes for Johnson & Johnson when I do the poll, then obviously I'm going to invest in Johnson & Johnson, let's say. But at least your stock would be in the poll, maybe Tesla or what have you, if you're the first 10 within the first 10 stocks. So hopefully, I think that's a really cool idea. I really like it, and it kind of gives me a little bit more reason to interact with you guys, and it gives you guys more reason to interact with the videos. So right now it's kind of just like I'll do a video every couple months or something, being like, hey, by the way, I got another $100 or so in the YouTube Moolah portfolio, and it's kind of boring in that respect. So anyway, we got some people chatting in here. Up here, 24 people have come in and out. So that's not what I meant. I meant 24 people, 20 to 25 people concurrently. So I hopefully I didn't get you too excited that 24 people have come in and out. I meant 20 to 25 people concurrently. So I'd invest in fundraisers. I had to do it over, but it depends on the goals too. I want dividends, no appreciation. So I know what to do if I did it all over again. That's a really cool idea. And, like I said, I invest in Fundrise now. And for those of you that don't know, sorry, I'll get back into the view here. I'm investing $138 a month in Fundrise just to kind of diversify the portfolio. And the reason I'm doing that is I think I did like a test, and it said if I want to build $100,000 in Fundrise over the next 20 years, I needed to invest $138 a month. And so I was like, well, $138 a month, that's a minor amount of what I'm investing monthly. So I don't mind kind of siphoning that off and kind of just auto investing that. So we'll see how that goes. At the moment, I'm on like month 4 or 5. So now I have about $1,700 in the Fundrise portfolio, which is kind of cool. So yes, I was having a conversation with about how the media construes stuff as well, and that's one of the things I've learned living outside of the United States now. And I always kind of knew it, but it's kind of solidified it for me. But anyway, it's getting too political, and that's not this type of channel. So yeah, with respect to investing, so with Maria, she's talking about trying to convince people to invest. I think it's difficult. It's a difficult conversation to have, and it's another part of the article that I want to write, talking about 4 different cycles of people and their investment, 4 different phases of the investment cycle, or something like that. I forget what I was writing, but basically the first part is people just like not having the recognition or having miseducation about the stock market, and therefore have heard things from the media or friends and family, and so therefore they get miseducated or see a misrepresentation of the stock market, and so folks will, in my opinion, generally speaking, talk about the negative things because it will try to, if they can convince other folks to not do it as well, it almost vindicates their thinking. Or maybe vindicate isn't the right word. Validate, I think, is the word I'm looking for. Validates their thinking. And so they think, well, if I can turn so-and-so off and save them, then I've done my job as a friend or a family member. But in actuality, they're doing them a disservice, because I think the stock market is a phenomenal place to grow money. But with a miseducation, it will cause people to go in the inappropriate direction. And I think that miseducation or those missteps come from a lack of appropriate planning, appropriate strategies. And I talk a lot about that a lot, so apologies for reiterating. But I think what ends up happening is people dip their toes in, they try to get rich quick, and they make inappropriate decisions, and then they say, I'm okay with the risk, and then the risk actually happens, and the risk is realized, and then that ends up resulting in a huge consequence. And then that consequence is something they're not ready to deal with. They're either too emotional, or they were just lying to themselves because they were like, well, if this $1,000 goes to $1 million tomorrow, I'll be happy, but then they lose $1,000 within a couple days. Um, anyway, then they kind of swear off investing and try to convince everyone else in the world. And so I've seen people do the same at work where they're well off folks, and they see me and others investing in the stock market, and then they're like, I'm finally getting back in. And I'm like, you know, after all this time, like you've lived, like you started working in 2008, would have been the best time for you to start investing. But, 2018 is probably not the best time, but better late than never. And then immediately I find out that they're like trying to day trade this stock and that stock. And I'm like, you work a full time job, man. Like it's not what you should be doing, especially because, anyway, so you have to invest for the strategy that you want. And to keep in mind, I forget who said this, it was really wise. Um, I said something very similar to this, but if you don't have any time, don't be a day trader, right? Like if you don't have any time, just do long, consistent additions of capital into the portfolio, dividend, ETFs, what have you. If you have a little bit more time and you enjoy it, maybe you want to do individual stocks. But if you want to be very passive about it and just put capital into the portfolio, ETFs, don't be a day trader. Don't look for penny stocks. Don't. And so you have to really format your strategy and your portfolio around your capability and what works for you. So what I realized early was penny stocks didn't work for me. Investing in high growth companies didn't work for me. I was trying to invest too much into like momentum stocks and what have you. And I was more happy and realized that I was more happy and realized the consistency with dividend investing was for me. So anyway, different story for a different day. But so yes, a lot of people talking to each other. That's great. Love that. For starters, investing feels slow. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, about that. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, or not the other day, but more like 2 years ago, and I love this person, and I have a different lifestyle. So what works for me might not necessarily work for you, and that's why I think that everyone needs to create their own decisions. But we're losing momentum here. Before I continue this story, we're down to 13 people, so we need to get 7 to 12 more people in here. And anyway, but back to the story. So I personally don't view myself as wanting to own a personal home in the next couple of years. One, because of my job, and I might be trying to be mobile and move to different countries and stuff like that. But also because I don't want to have capital tied up. Now, that's not saying that everyone should not own a home. I think that it really depends on. No, it's the all-inclusive bracelet around the resort. I wish I went to the club. I went to the club in Cancun. That was a good time. But good stories about that. If I ever see you guys in person, ask me about the pictures. I got them. Actually, it's probably on my Instagram. If you want to look at Mexico on my Instagram, it's probably there. So feel free to give that a look. It's probably under Cancun, not Mexico. But anyway, and so I was like, I personally don't want to buy a home. I don't want to have the capital tied up in a home. I don't get personal enjoyment out of home ownership. So why would I invest or put money or capital into something that I personally don't get enjoyment out of? And I know I wouldn't personally take care of a home as well as I should if I was a homeowner. So I personally was just like, well, I'm not going to put capital into something I don't enjoy. And so this person asked me, like, well, you don't want to buy a home. And so it makes me think and second guess. And it's like, well, do you want to do house projects? Do you want to do, remodeling of whatever home you buy, paint this, paint that? And they were like, yeah, I would get enjoyment out of that. And I was like, well, then sounds like home ownership is for you. So, just because something works for one person doesn't necessarily mean it works for another. Just like penny stock investing works for Tim Sykes, or maybe he's lying and maybe he's, just making money through ads, or membership courses and stuff like that. But that's also very possible as well. But there's also very successful day traders and stuff like that. So day trading, you can make money. Swing trading, you can make a lot of money. Penny stocks, I've seen people make money as well. So, not saying that you can't make money. I think you just need to be realistic about what your strategy is. So, anyway, but yeah, I agree 100% with what Blab Phantom said. A lot of people, instead of investing $100 a month, they'd rather take that and buy the latest shirt or something like that. And anyway, I think a lot of people hear financial advisors say 10 to 15%, and what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, well, now I have more money to invest in or buy X or buy Y, whether it's clothing, material items, without understanding the true meaning behind that 10 to 15%. That 10 to 15% savings per year, sorry, I'm about to sneeze, is going to mean that you're working for, excuse me, you're working for 40 to 50 years. And so if you want to do that, that's fine. You just want to use that other 10 to 15% that you should be saving to buy clothes and stuff like that, and that makes you happy. I can understand that. But if you want to retire early and you want to have other freedoms, whether that's freedoms to visit family, to travel, maybe you should invest a little bit more money. So let's see. A lot of talking to Maria. I like this. Hopefully, Maria, I haven't seen you on the channel before, so hopefully you're a subscriber, and hopefully you're getting a lot of enjoyment out of being on the channel. So Stockpile app is something I haven't really covered before, but I would like to. It seems pretty cool. Yeah, custodial accounts are something that I think are really cool. So I see people going back and forth about opening up custodial accounts to help educate their children. I think that that's really wise. Something that I also was thinking about doing for my nieces and nephews, but instead I worked on a 529 account instead. And that's a lie. I have the 529 accounts for my nephews. I don't have an account yet for my nieces, even though they're about 3 and 4 months old at this point. So I need to create those. Maybe what I'll do is I'll do the, I'll do the custodial accounts. I just got back to the You've Been Into Club. That's funny. Takes money to make money, so you must initially save. You need to invest, otherwise you're losing money. Yes and no. Expat entertainment. What? I don't know what that means, but what is an expat? No, yeah, I know what that means. Yeah. You have a property that costs you more than you can make on it. Well, that's unfortunate to hear. Maybe you could refinance it or something like that. That might be able to lower your monthly payment so you could actually get cash flow on it. But depending on how much, I don't know much about real estate, so take this with a grain of salt. But depending on how much you're losing, whether it's $1 or $200, if you're only losing $1 per month, I guess my first questions would be, are you allocating for expenses and stuff like that? Or are you saying that what you're renting it for is not even able to make the mortgage payment without any electricity and stuff like that? Those other expenses also included. Because if you're only, say, losing $1 per month and you're including, reserves for expenses, reserves for landlord property management costs and stuff like that, then you could keep it only paying, say, $1 a month, and hope for over the next couple of years as rental income increases, then you could potentially begin to get cash flow positive. You also have to take into account that if you do have the mortgage on it, them being a tenant while you might be losing, say, $50 out of pocket, you are gaining that equity. So you could do that calculation. Not saying that that's the best. Obviously, you don't want to be paying out of pocket to be able to get equity in the home, but you also have to think that it's going to take time and closing costs to be able to get money out of the home as well. So depending on when you bought the home, whether that was a year ago, 2 years ago, you might not necessarily have made enough equity, depending on the mortgage, to be able to recuperate the costs of, say, closing costs, which end up being close to 6%. And so in that respect, I mean, very different story if you've held the property for 5 to 10 years at this point. But anyway, like I said, I'm not a real estate guru or even a stock market guru for that matter. But anyway. Listen more to chatting, no problem. But seems like you're getting a lot of. Oh, you own it free and clear. Wow, so you own it free and clear. Sorry, I should have been paying attention. You own it free and clear. And you still are barely breaking even. Then that's pretty wild. Yeah, Jose's a cool dude. I actually, when we were talking between me and J Mac and Jose, I realized that I had watched a couple of Jose's videos and really enjoyed them. But for some reason, sometimes you don't even recognize that you're not subscribed. And what ends up happening is like their videos will still show up on your feed and you'll still watch them, but then you don't even realize that you're not subscribed. And so I hate always begging people to subscribe, so you generally don't hear me talk about it. But in a couple of my recent videos, it's kind of crazy. I'll just put like a little nodule like please subscribe or don't forget to subscribe. And those videos you end up seeing like within a couple days you get almost like 5 to 10 subscribers, whereas other videos you see 0 subscribers and it's like the same amount of views and stuff like that. So sometimes just the mentioning it helps. Awesome. Describe the channel in one sentence. Absolutely. So if I could describe the channel in one sentence, it would be to document my own progress and help inspire others to create their own investing strategy so they can succeed at investing. So hopefully that was good. And hopefully that was one sentence. Might have been a couple commas in there, but anyway, we're losing viewership, and I know it's getting a little bit late, but I don't think Hidden Freedom Investing is going to get his wish tonight. I think we're going to have to wait until another night for people to find out what exactly I do. But I'll tell you one thing: if we can get this channel, or not this channel, if we can get this video up to, let's see, it's a live stream, so I have to be nice to you guys and not make something too unattainable. If we can get this live stream up to 150 likes, I will tell you folks what I do for a living. That makes more sense, Maria. Yes, renters do suck. I have family. A lot of my family does single-family home real estate as well as multifamily real estate. So I can understand the piece of the business. I grew up around multifamily real estate in some of my family members' businesses. So I understand how great renters can be. And great is a sarcastic term. But generally speaking, I feel like most people are very good if you vet them and don't let them walk all over you. But there are the horror stories about, and I think what ends up happening is good tenants, generally speaking, stay for extended periods of time. Like for me, I lived in Houston for, you might say this is bad, but I lived in Houston for 6 years. I lived in one place for 13 months. I moved to a different part of town. and stayed in one place for 3 years and stayed in the other place for 2.5 years. And the only reason why I left the other place, the 1 and 2.5 years, is because I had to move across or out of the country, basically. The only reason why I left the second place is because they kept raising rent, and I found other places nearby that saved me $200 a month. So by the time I actually was done my first year of leasing, I actually recuperated the money I would have lost had I continued to rent at that other place. And so I think it was end up like $250 or something a month. And so I was like, I'll end up saving like 2 months rent if I moved to this other place. So I think what it cost me $300 to move. Within the first month and a little bit, I was able to recuperate those costs. And then within the next 5 months, I was able to recuperate 1 month's rent. I ended up living there for 250 years, and they barely budged the rent. But that's a different story for a different day. But I think what ends up happening is you have some of these, I've seen this happen to coworkers where they'll try to get into single family real estate. Sorry, I like shampooed the crap out of my hair, and for some reason, the first day after I shampoo the crap out of my hair, it always goes a little crazy. It goes real wavy and whatnot. They are inexperienced, and so screening tenants isn't their best job at that point. And what they'll end up doing is letting somebody in too easy. They're generally nice people, and so they believe and trust people a lot. And what ends up happening is they'll be like, oh, I'll pay you the first 3 months in cash or something like that. So that gets people really incentivized. Like 3 months cash, like that's awesome. That's like a quarter of a year's rent right up front. And so ends up, the fact that, they have cash on hand now, but they don't have a steady income job. They might falsify documents. And so I seen that happen to two coworkers, and those people end up changing locations every 4 months or so. And so I feel like that those people, since they're always on the move every 4 months or so, they end up moving a lot more, and you end up running into those people a lot more than you are able to run into those that have stable income and stable rental history, because those guys are end up staying in good places unless once every couple of years they decide to move. So anyway, what? Sorry, I'm just catching up to like Gen X's comment. I do not know how the corpse got in the fridge, and I'm like, what? Yeah, I know. East Coast is counting sheep. I get in trouble because I forget who it is, but I'll do a live stream, and they've missed like, I don't know. I don't know how many live streams at this point, but they're upset that they've missed like all of them or a portion of them and whatnot. So, yeah, Dave's got to go make fake accounts. So I don't know what he's still doing on here. We're losing people fast because people are probably getting off to go to sleep, and it's probably close to 11 o'clock at this point. So I went to Penn State University, and that's all I'll say about that. Penn State University, and I studied engineering. Ah, Mariah. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to upset you, Mariah. Hopefully you don't hate me. Yeah, I was saying Maria. I don't know why. I apologize, Mariah. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. A lot of times, it was actually the property management. Um, it was actually the property management company that asked him, like, "Oh, he's got the documents. He's got this." It's like they were trying to get him through the door without doing like a proper background check and stuff like that. And it's like, anyway, so the property management is the end up who ended up screwing him over because he was just like, you're right, like you probably have more experience than I do. And so the property management was doing it just so they can collect their paycheck, their 6, 12%, whatever they ended up charging. And anyway, ended up in court about 4 months later with the one particular case that I'm talking about. Um, mm, yeah, I don't know. I don't know your situation, Mariah. So I can't really tell you if you should sell it, invest in O. But I think O is overpriced at the moment. Maybe it's because I haven't been doing as much research on it as I used to. But I remember when I first started investing in O, I was paying like 14 times price to funds from operations, and it got all the way up to 20s, and it's still climbing in price. So unless they've drastically increased their funds from operations, it's probably um, yeah. Those are all the programs at Penn State. I'm trying to think. Aerospace. Don't they have aeronautical too? I'm trying to think. Civil engineering, chemical engineering. Why are all these like? I'm trying to think. Is there anything else um, that? Oh, yeah. I was wondering. I was like, I could have sworn there's a lot more engineering than that. But those are one of the B's and C's. That's so funny. Um, yes. Mariah is extremely correct. Most people don't work in the degree that they got their studies in. I also do, though, so I don't know why I highlighted that. Geo Group. I personally don't have a comment on GEO. If you want to comment on GEO and you're looking for someone to either validate or invalidate your investment opinion, Passive Income Investor is someone that invests in GEO Group. So go check him out. I personally don't have any experience or knowledge of the company other than what he told me this past weekend. So he is long on GEO. So I agree. REITs are expensive. It's crazy. I was looking like the 6 month for like WP Carey, Cone being Cyrus One, and a couple other companies. They were kind of like up, down, up, down, up, down, and then the past 6 months it was just like skyrocketing up and to the right. And I'm like thinking, I don't like to sell most of the time. Um, I used to sell a lot more. I don't sell as much anymore. But I'm like, do I sell? I'm like, because if the market does take a dip, then I could buy them back at a reduced rate and probably a better price to funds from operations. And I could take like my 100 shares, let's say, up to like 120 shares or something like that. And that would increase my dividend and, all that jazz. But part of me is just like, eh, you know, who knows? Um, but yeah, I wonder if hidden freedom investing is off, not asking any more questions because he's making fake accounts. Because he's got 9 people that he needs to get in here before he finds out what type of engineering I do. Trying to make a video. That's true. I don't watch as much of your videos, man. I got to do better at that. I've been trying to watch more people's videos, and I was having that conversation with a passive income investor. I feel like I'd be able to be a lot better of a community member of the Dividend portfolio or just investing community here on YouTube if I had a little bit more free time. And I'm just hoping that this YouTube thing continues to grow and it doesn't hit a point where some other platform or something comes out. If it does and it's better for the community, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I hope it just doesn't fizzle out and people forget about it. But anyway. Yeah, so I'm with you. I was just like, well, it's like, do I take a laptop with me to Turks and Caicos, try to make a legitimate video. And then I was like, I need a break. Um, Not a break from YouTube at all, but like a work break. And with work break, I didn't want to take a work computer or my personal computer, because personal computer's on its last leg. I need to think about buying a new one. But I didn't want to take my work computer in case that got lost. Then I had to deal with, stuff like that, deal with work files and stuff being lost on my personal drive and whatnot. And then didn't want to take my personal computer because it's a lot clunkier. It's like twice the size of my work laptop. So I didn't end up taking it, but I was just like, oh, do I not take a video? But then I was thinking, I was just like, I was in the zone all day today, thinking about other business ideas and stuff I want to do. I was like, well, at least I could do is, like, it's 9 o'clock now. Had a really good dinner, had a really good day, hung out on the beach, was thinking a lot about YouTube and interacting with you guys and other businesses. And I was like, I could at least sit down and chat with a couple of you guys. So, but yeah, I'm curious. Unless any of you guys have some other questions, hopefully I've been forthcoming about most of my questions and stuff like that over the past 96 minutes, over an hour and a half. But otherwise, I'm gonna call it a night, I think, unless I'll give people another 2 or 3 minutes to ask some questions. And if nothing comes up, then I'll probably wind down. But I guess to help transition the video into winding it down, I really appreciate everybody stopping by. For those of you guys that are somewhat new to the channel, currently make around 11,000 or so in dividend income, and I'm going to try to increase that to about 14,000 by the end of year end 2020, and then thereafter try to increase it to close to 20,000. I think maybe it is 21,000 that I'm aiming for. So I'm hoping to almost double the portfolio income over the next 2 years, and then slowly wind down on the increase. So I think next year it's supposed to be 55% increase. The year thereafter it's supposed to be 50% increase. And then every year from 2022 onward should be about a 30% increase. So really hoping to get to about 48 to 50,000 in the next couple of years, but we'll see how that goes. But with respect to other things, what else was I planning on saying? I have a couple of videos coming up with respect to collaboration. So I reached out to Cherry Tongue, who does fashion and finance videos. Some of you guys might know her. So hopefully with her, I'll be able to do a video or collaboration with Passive Income Investor, hopefully to do a collab and video or something else as well. And who else was there? There's a couple people I reached out to, but trying to think. But yeah, at the moment, I'm really trying to stack up some cash. I think somebody had a really good point of view earlier today. I think it was financial education, and he was the one that was talking about running your life like it's a business. And would you want to invest in a business if there one mishap or one financial misstep or one emergency away from not having any money? And he's right. At the moment, I don't really have cash on hand because I've continued to invest it as I see deals coming up, whether it was Johnson & Johnson, Caterpillar, which both have been making money and I'm up positively on. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, maybe I should be more conservative with my cash and maybe hold closer to 5 to 10%. Because generally speaking, what I do is, there was a rare instance, whether it was, I think it was late last year or early this year, when I had like almost 20% in cash. And I think that was before I invested in Cardone Capital. Because I think what ended up happening is I got paid bonuses and stuff that come out in March, April timeframe. And then I also sold Realty Income Corp. And so maybe that was last year, but regardless, haven't been that cash heavy ever. But generally speaking, I try to hold below 5% just because. So what Wow, 30 to 35%. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't necessarily think I would go off immediately and rush to sell things because obviously that would end up triggering, say, taxes and what have you. But what I think I'll do is maybe relax slightly on the amount of investing I do. So maybe I'll still continue to invest in, say, 2,000, 2,500 a month. But what I'll probably do is keep an additional 2,000, 2,500 in, say, my personal savings checking account in case of emergencies. What I like to generally tell people, which I generally don't end up following, is I like to keep about 3 months or so of personal expenses in my personal savings account, but that hasn't been 3 months worth in a while because I just always continue to invest it. It gets up to like maybe 2.5 months worth of expenses, and I'll find something to buy. Where I'll be like, okay, this month's cash flow, the 4 or 5 thousand that's going into the portfolio goes into X, and I'm like, well, this also came up. I don't want to not invest in this, so then I ended up investing. Like when I first moved to Trinidad, I think I invested like $15,000 in the first month or something. It was absurd. But yeah, what do I do for a living? I'm telling you, man. Maybe if Hidden Freedom Investing did his work and got 9 other people in here, we'd be talking about what I do. Because I think you guys would be interested. I think you guys ask a lot of questions, and I might not tell you guys what employer or something like that. But I think you guys would have a lot of questions about the business and stuff like that. But so what do I do for this? So best thing about the trip so far. So I guess the recent trips I've taken this year, aside from living in Trinidad, because that's more work, but I can talk about that as well. So I visited 4 new countries this year. Sorry, 5. So I went to Cancun, which was Mexico. That was my first time. So that doesn't represent all of Mexico, and I understand that. Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. Still haven't been to Tobago, but I've been to Trinidad. Canada, and now Turks and Caicos. And trying to decide. So I'd say of Cancun was a lot of fun. I went to Cancun with my buddy. And so that was nice to have. And I met some cool folks in Cancun. So with respect to that, that was a lot of fun. Got real drunk, had a good time. But with respect to Grenada was a lot of fun because I was exploring a lot. It was really mountainous. So I was driving a lot. Here in Turks and Caicos, I've really just been relaxing, thinking. So each of these trips, I've been in a very different mindset. And so Cancun was party. Grenada was like part party. Met up with a girl in Grenada as well. And then also decided to explore a little bit, drive around, go see some of the waterfalls. And so that was kind of like exploration slash. And so Turks and Caicos kind of really just been at the moment just resort life. So being very honest, service here is phenomenal. And so being almost waited on hand and foot, I like walk out, everyone seems very genuinely happy to be here. They're not like, it doesn't seem like they're forced to say hello. It seems like they generally want to be here, and really genuine, beautiful people. So I really do enjoy it here, although it just seems like a nice United States, like in my opinion, it just seems like a nice beachy United States where it's like if you overpaid to live or overpaid to be on like a beach somewhere in the US, you'd almost get the same sort of feeling. So anyway, hopefully that kind of makes sense, but it really doesn't feel like I'm almost in a separate part of the world. It almost feels like it's very close to the US, but it doesn't really feel like there's a very big difference. I mean, there's slight accents and stuff like that, but everyone speaks English. The resorts are nice. Everything kind of looks American. It just looks like a typical beach house. Granted, where I'm staying is beach house. So And for those of you guys that follow me on Instagram probably see the pictures, but it doesn't feel like it's a different country. Grenada felt like a different country. Cancun felt like a different country. It had different aspects of America, but you know, definitely all these feel first world. Trinidad feels first world. Grenada feels first world. You know, everything seems really modern, up to date. Trinidad also, while it has its differences, it doesn't seem as much different from America as I thought it would. So I guess that's kind of been my initial discovery of these new last 4 countries that I've visited, is they really don't seem different. And I think the reason probably being is everyone generally speaks English. And so even in Mexico, yeah, you have a little bit of Spanish speaking and stuff like that. But when I went to Mexico, I had my Google translator with me. So my buddy speaks Spanish. I grew up in a Mexican household. So anyway, so yeah, regular toilets, everything like that. Here though, they drive. It's interesting. Turks and Caicos, they use the U.S. dollar as their currency. I think they might use the Eastern Caribbean dollar, but everyone prefers to use the U.S. dollar, probably because it's generally wider used across the world. And so if they want to get any goods from, say, Amazon or anything like that, they don't have to worry about buying goods or anything from Amazon because they get their money in U.S. dollars. I don't know if they're paid in U.S. dollars, but everyone tips in U.S. dollars, and everyone, generally speaking, for taxis and stuff, pays in U.S. dollars as well. And everything that I bought was in U.S. dollars for the resort and everything like that. So anyway, I'm trying to think. But the funny thing about Turks and Caicos is they also drive on the left side of the road, and so I'm used to that. Is it the left side? Yes. This is interesting. So I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. So they drive on the left side of the road, but the driver was also on the left side of the road. But I've only been in one car since I've been here, so that could have just been an exception. But everyone drives on the left side of the road, which is normal for me now living in Trinidad and Tobago. But in Trinidad and Tobago, everyone drives on the right side of the car, so the seating position is opposite from the United States. But when I came here, everyone drives on the left side of the road, and this guy drove on the left-hand side of the car as well. And since it was a big van, it might have just been because it's a big van. So it is what it is. Now we got 12 people. So it seems like Hidden Freedom Investing is making fake accounts or something so he can get the viewership up. But now it looks like they dropped off. Oh, no, came back. But yeah, unless there's any other quick questions, I'm probably going to end it here. But, yeah. So, you visited Seoul, Korea, and Beijing, and China. China seems like a real big blast. So, I have a friend who works with me in Trinidad. She's from India originally. And so, I'm trying to convince her to get married, so it gives me a reason to go to India. Because I've watched, what's his name? Bald and Bankrupt and Harold Balder. Harold Balder? Harold. I think it's Harold Balder. But anyway, they did a bunch of videos and a series together in India, and it seemed like a phenomenal time. And living in Trinidad and Tobago, I've had really phenomenal, spicy, flavorful Indian food. And so, you'll marry her. Are you Indian? If you're Indian, I'll introduce you to her, and especially if you're American, she wants her American citizenship. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but anyway, that's kind of private. Probably shouldn't have said that. She's not actually going to marry anybody for American citizenship. She'll marry them for love. But what was I saying? But yeah, India looks like a blast, and it looks like unlike anywhere I've ever been before. And so, like, I've been places across the U.S., but generally speaking, everything in the U.S. is relatively the same because everything is so commercialized now. Yes, they have their different geographies and climates and stuff like that, but everything always generally kind of feels American. whereas going to India looks completely different. So I'm really curious. Maybe one day, me and you, Mariah, we can talk about your trips to Beijing and in Korea. I also have a buddy working in Korea at the moment. That he shows me some cool vids, but those are the kind of places where I feel like it would be very different to go and visit, and I would have more of a culture shock. Now it's kind of like working in Trinidad and working in the Caribbean and visiting other Caribbean islands. It's like laid back, so it's not very different from the United States, but you can tell that it's just a little bit more laid back. Whereas actually going to those kind of countries, it's like different cultures for sure. It's like the biggest difference in Trinidad is like, yeah, the food's different. Not everything is commercialized. You drive on the different side of the road, but everyone still speaks English. Yeah, there's a little bit of slang and stuff like that that you might not necessarily be immediately falling into, but everyone's real intelligent and works really hard. So in that respect, it's not too much different than the United States. Actually, I think Trinidadians are probably in general smarter than Americans, but that's a different story for a different day. But yeah, really curious and I really want to see that part of the world. So, sorry, I'm just laughing at hidden freedom investing. I need to have a beer with you one day, man. Maybe one day I'll just do a live stream with you. That would be funny, man. You say some hysterical stuff. I'm with you, man. So I've always liked Indian food. I've never had a problem with it. I obviously like my food. You can tell I'm a bigger guy. Um, but but yeah, so my love with Indian food, I guess, started in college. I never really had it growing up because that wasn't really the type of food my parents ate when they were growing up. So they never really had that perspective on how Indian food tasted. And so when I went to college was the first time I really had it. So this is probably 8, 9 years ago now. And I fell in love. Beautiful flavors, naan, everyone loves bread. So naan was easy to transition to. And the spices were just so flavorful, spicy and aromatic, and fell in love. And I thought food when I went to college at Penn State was good with respect to Indian food. Then when I went to Houston, the food was good, but I thought it could have been better for Indian food in particular. A lot of food in Houston is very good, but the Indian food I thought was lacking that extra kick of spice and stuff like that. I came to Trinidad, and man, like I eat it probably 2 to 3 times a week. Like I get upset when this company or this restaurant I order from, their like online ordering system is down, because I'm too lazy to call, and I'm generally speaking just want to like order, get in the car and drive there, not like call them, have to talk to somebody, be put on hold and stuff like that. So, but anyway, love it. Samosas are delicious. Lamb Rogan Josh is real good, and it's like you can find phenomenal Indian food anywhere because a lot of West Indians came originally from India, so like a generation or two back, or maybe even more, came to Trinidad, and now there's a lot of Western and Indian influence, and so they celebrate Diwali, which has just happened this past weekend, and I was really sad to miss it, but I would have missed it anyway because I was there for a wedding. Now it's like, well, I actually was able to fly back if I wanted to by the time Diwali was ending, so I would have missed it regardless for the wedding. So anyway, different story for the different day. But man, you worked in Qatar and Kuwait. That's awesome. I've heard a lot of good things about Oman, but I know some people that worked in Kuwait. Won't talk about that, but Qatar or Qatar, however you pronounce it. Haven't heard much about that. So turmeric, yeah. Ooh, chicken makhani. I've never heard of that before. Yeah, dude. So I like American food. Not gonna lie. But yeah, I just realized that like um, it it's kind of just bland and boring. It's like, yeah, you have burgers and stuff like that, but um, But yeah, anyway. Yeah, man. Gen X is the true baller. So he's probably been all over the world. I'll have to get a beer and do a collab with him one of these days when he's not doing his extremely intricate videos, which I love to watch, by the way. Americanized Chinese food, yeah. Hot food doesn't like you. So yeah, so I like spicy food as well. And so moving to Trinidad and Tobago, initially I was having a little bit of trouble adjusting. So I would put hot sauce on everything in the U.S. But I think what ended up happening is like there's like raw pepper in the pepper sauces they have. And it's in my bag, but I'm too lazy to grab it, and I don't want people to leave if I walk out, even though there's only 8 of us now just talking about food, no longer investing. But and so I think my stomach was having issues initially digesting like the seeds and stuff like that. Not the seeds, but like the spice, because it was more raw. It was hotter and my mouth could handle it, but I couldn't, like my digestive system couldn't handle it as well. Now I think I'm fully adjusted. So if bacon is American food, then I like American food. Yeah, luckily for me, I ordered I went to, they have like one restaurant here. It's like kind of a more of like a boutique place here, and it's also like associated with 2 other resorts. I guess the owner owns all 3 of them. So tomorrow after breakfast, I'll probably hop over to one of the other resorts and see what they have to offer. But they offered breakfast in the suite, so I ordered some pancakes and some bacon and sausage, and a fruit bowl and some pineapple juice. So I have to find out 9 or 9:30. So I got to make sure I get to bed soon enough so I can wake up in that time. Is it really? Traveling's your thing? I didn't know that, so we'll have to catch up. And I think you follow me on Instagram, so maybe I'll DM you and ask you if you got some suggestions. So for those of you that don't know, I've tried to expand my goals, personal goals, development goals, traveling goals, personality goals. And with that, I put a traveling goal in here. And so the goal at the moment, while it might be ambitious, I feel like is kind of under ambitious, is 50 countries by 50. And so now, whether you want to consider Turks and Caicos and Antigua countries, I guess technically they're still part of the UK, but I'm going to consider them countries because in my opinion, they're different enough from the UK that they're kind of countries. And so I'm probably not going to make all 195 countries or recognized countries anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But for me, I'll say it's a country. But 50 countries by 50 is kind of the goal at the moment. And so I currently am at 8. When I go to Antigua, that'll be 9. And I'm hoping to hit 10. So I think I'm going to go to Barbados in early December, which will be country number 10, which will be a blast because I'm going with a guy who works with me in Trinidad, but he's a local Barbadian, Bayesian. They call him Bayesian? But he's from Barbados, and so he's going to tour me around. So I'm 28 years old, just to answer that really quick. And so with that, I'm hoping to catch up. So since I'll only be at 10 by the end of this year, and I'm going to be turning 29 in May of next year, I'm trying to catch up over the next couple months. And so I might take a trip to Central America, hop around some of those countries to see what that's like, because I love cigars, you guys know. So that would give me a chance to check those out as well as experience some Central American countries. Or I could go to Europe or Southeast Asia. So it really all depends. I would love to do South America, but it seems very difficult to get to from Trinidad. Actually, maybe not too difficult. It's a 5-hour flight to Panama and then anywhere from Panama to wherever in South America. But it's not direct. I mean, since I'm literally, at its closest point, 6 miles away, in Trinidad from South America, you think it'd be a little bit easier. Although I could fly to Guyana or Suriname, but I don't think they have a lot of good follow-on flights once I get to Suriname and Guyana. But I also plan on visiting Guyana and Suriname while I'm in Trinidad as well. So hoping to get to maybe 12 to 15 countries before I leave Trinidad and go back to the US. So there's that story. Rio, yeah. I've heard great stories about folks going to Rio. But anyway. So we're down to nine folks in the room here, including me on my phone. So really only 8. Hidden Freedom Investor did not. I feel bad. Like I'm just about to. Yeah, you're all investors, hopefully, and including investing sensei. Just sensei. I don't know who just sensei. I guess you could call him. Just joined as well. But I think I'm gonna call it. Been on for about 2 hours now, so hopefully you guys heard and had any questions. But if you didn't have the questions, you didn't ask any questions, leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll hopefully get to it. But I hope this was fun. Hope it was beneficial for you guys. Even though we didn't hit Hidden Freedom Investing's goal of finding out what I do, this video hits 150 likes. I'll tell you guys. And don't forget to check back those other 2 videos. Yeah, you logged in a little bit late, but if you want to talk, message me on Instagram. I'll be sure to chat with you as well. But what was I saying? But yeah, those other 2 videos before, you guys choose the stock, I buy it. That gets to 250 likes. We'll start investing into the new stock that you guys want. And then the $350,000 portfolio video that I just did, if you guys get that to 250 likes, I will tell you guys every single stock that's in the portfolio. So, yeah, you got to hit that like button. So, anyway, hope this video found you guys well. I'll talk to you guys on the next live stream / next video. Cheers.